Welcome to today's event where we have the pleasure to present OrderYOYO. To help us through today's presentation, we are joined by CEO Jesper Johansen and CFO Jesper Hyveled. Today's events will cover the full year report as stated here on the front page. I think you released it Wednesday. As always, it's possible to ask questions during the event. We will take it in the end, primarily do it in English, do it in Danish. If in Danish, I will try and translate to the best of my abilities. But for now, I'll hand the call over to you, Jesper.
Yes, thank you, Michael. And welcome everybody to this presentation of our annual report and our audited and finalized 23 results. I'm Jesper Johansen, I'm the CEO of OrderYOYO, and I'm here with Jesper Hyveled, our CFO. The numbers and results as we presented in the Q4 trading update in January, so the numbers should not come as a surprise for you. But hopefully the level of details will give you a little more insight in our numbers in this presentation. As I mentioned in our Q4 update meeting, 23 was the year where we saw our consolidation strategy and our path to profitability strategy really showing results. So let's get into it. Next slide, please, Michael. Yeah, before we start the presentation, just 30 seconds as usual on this important slide. Okay, let's start. Next slide, please, Michael. So, an important fly into what we do. Some of you have definitely heard this before, but it's very important. We liberate restaurants. So 90% of the orders of an average independent takeaway restaurant comes from recurrent customers, and the restaurant needs to own these customers, and we help them claim them back. And on top of that, we can do this at much lower cost for the restaurant than the portals, basically cutting the cost for the restaurants in half. This has been our value proposition from day one, and our growth shows that we have a strong product market fit. So Q4 was very strong for us, proving that what we do works. ARR growth of 40% to 296 million, just below 300 million mark. And important is to say that we've experienced strong growth throughout the whole year in a market which is basically flat or growing with low single-digit numbers. So we're outgrowing the market here. And increasing EBITDA profitability significantly to 25.6 million kroner, 10% EBITDA margin comparing to a loss of just around 1 million in 22. So an increase of almost 27 million compared to last year. So strong numbers that we are very proud of. Next slide, please, Michael. Now, a new way of showing the 40% ARR growth country by country. I see that the numbers here are quite low or small, so I'll talk you through them. But what we've done here is we've actually split up the 40% growth in the geographic growth that we see in the different markets. So very strong growth in Germany and Ireland, 62% growth in Germany year-over-year, and 49% growth in Ireland. But also very strong growth in the UK at 25%. Now, those of you that listened in on these presentations earlier would know that especially UK has been challenged in terms of growth. So very excited to see that UK is back on a healthy growth trajectory. For clarification, Denmark is flat, our smallest and most mature market, where it's all about maintaining market, which we do. Next slide, Michael. So yet another split over 40% ARR growth. Growth mainly coming from new customers with approximately 80%, and the remaining 20% coming from existing customers. A healthy ARR churn of just above 5% at 5.5%. Next slide, please. And lastly, before I hand over to Hyveled to go through the numbers, the ARR split. Healthy split both in terms of type and geography. So 63% of our ARR is commission-based and 37% is fixed, giving us the best of both worlds. We grow with our restaurant partners, but we also have a strong flow under our ARR. Geographically, Germany is our biggest market with 45% of ARR, UK 29%, and Ireland, including Northern Ireland, 16%. Smallest market is, even though this is where we originally were founded, as mentioned earlier, Denmark with 8%, but a very healthy composition that's strong for us. Over to you, Jesper.
Thank you, Jesper. Next slide, please, Michael. So I will give you the Q4 and full year highlights as also presented on our Q4 investor call back in January. And let's kick that off, Michael, with the next slide, please. So as Jesper already mentioned, our annual recurring revenue increased by 40% year-over-year, reaching 296 million in 2023. Next slide, please. So here, looking at our full year net revenue, reached 253 versus 284 pro forma net revenue in 2022, an increase of 38%, which is close to our ARR growth. So again, very strong. Next slide, please, Mike. December 2023 GMV increased by 32%, reaching 2.9 billion. Strong growth in an ongoing challenge market, in which we actually see that we are gaining market shares in all relevant markets. Next slide, please. Now, our EBITDA reported growth by 26.5 million to 25.6 million in 2023. Very strong again here, coming from just around 0 in 2022. Next slide, please, Mike. Our cash EBITDA ended just above 0 for the year, compared to a loss of 31 million in 2022. A very important milestone for us as we continue on our path towards profitability. Next slide, please, Mike. Finally here, let me present the net result bridge for 2023 annual accounts. So as we just discussed, the EBITDA 25.6 million. Then we have extraordinary cost of 5.4, mainly related to transaction cost on acquisitions. That ends up on our reported financial EBITDA on 20 million. And then we have depreciations on 47.8 million. That mainly relates to our R&D investments, which is almost half of this. And then finally, depreciations on goodwill and acquired assets. Then on financial expenses, just below 13 million. This relates to mainly interest of our debt financing. And then finally, tax positive of 9.3, ending up at our annual net loss of 31 million. Yeah, so just for clarification, I see that here the reported EBITDA is negative. That's obviously not correct. It's a plus 20 million in 2023. Now over to you, Jesper. This was my final comment.
Yeah, thank you. So next slide. 24 guidance numbers. Currently guiding for a December ARR of between 315 and 325 million. Net revenue of 275 and 285 million, all based on a GMV of between 3.1 and 3.3 billion Danish kroner. EBITDA guidance of 33 to 38 million, so strong EBITDA guidance, and a positive cash EBITDA of 5 to 10 million. Now specifically on profitability. Next slide, please, Michael. So as I started the presentation on, our path to profitability strategy that we implemented 2 years ago is really showing results. So from a margin of around 0 in both 21 and 22, we realized a 10% margin in 23 and is now guiding for a 11 to 13% margin in 24. And just as important, we released our long-term EBITDA margin of plus 25% when we announced our current trading for Q4. So 25% is a strong number, but we are very comfortable that we will realize this. That concludes the presentation. So over to you, Michael, and the Q&A session.
Perfect. The first question was actually regarding the financial cost or financial expenses that you do. Can you give us some kind of a composition on what is included in those, because it rose a lot, and maybe give the question is also, is that kind of the level we should expect for 24?
Yeah, so the majority of the financial expenses in 2023 relates to, as mentioned, the debt that we have with external financial providers. We will not too far from now, that's also visible in the annual report, start paying back some of these loans, and with that, obviously, this will decrease. But the right level is around with the current finance balance. It's around these 10 millions plus minus. So expect the same, but we are starting to pay back our loans not too far from now.
Then there's next question. What have you seen in the first months of 24 compared to second half 23 on the growth side? Have you seen any stop or did the momentum carry on into 24 also?
Well, it's early days, Michael, but the 2 first months of 24 has been good for us, and we have seen the momentum continue in the first couple of months. Now, obviously, we need a little more traction to make sure that we are on that growth trajectory. Both January and February are special months. There was a day more in February than the normal is, which obviously, when you compare to February last year, increases growth. The composition of the months can be different. So we need to see a little more time to understand exactly what we're looking at. Now, in general, the market and the competitors that we're looking at is basically growing at the same pace as they were last year. So just above a plus. Very much focused on EBITDA as a new kind of mantra.
Yeah. So the market growth assumptions you have in your guidance, that is a 24 market on the same level as 23. Nothing. You don't hope for anything better in the second half, as many are talking about. Is that what is in your guidance assumptions?
Yeah.
Perfect. Then there's a question. Can you give us some flavor on churn here in the beginning of 2024? I was also wondering a little bit about it. I think we see more bankruptcies. I know it's in Denmark, that's what I can follow, but I guess that's a big part of your churn is those bankruptcies, somebody closing down. So I don't know how much you're willing to give out, but do you see anything here?
Yeah, but I can say that the ARR churn, so we reported 5.5% ARR churn for 23. We haven't seen any increase in that in the first couple of months.
Perfect. And then, that was this about market growth. Then I actually have a question. I will switch the slides, because it was the first time you gave us this. Fixed subscriptions, 37%. You have always been looked at as a transaction-based, and we have a long discussion, what is more valuable and so on, that you can have different opinions about. But can you give us some kind of a feel on how that is going to develop and maybe a little bit about what is in your fixed subscription fees? Because I think it kind of changes the narrative on your company.
I think we've actually shown this a couple of times before, to be honest.
Okay, sorry, I have overlooked it.
I've been too busy keeping track of the two of us. So no, we have shown this before. And the thing here is, and I actually explained that the very first time we presented these numbers. So the original OrderYOYO model was a pure subscription-based model. Now the AppSmart model, the one that we acquired, was a mix. So both fixed fee and subscription. So and on top of that, all our growth fees are fixed fees. So and all the add-on products that we are offering will be and are fixed fees as well. So I think that this composition is more or less where we will be, 65-35, 60-40. And I think actually it's a great balance, because we don't want to be a company that is entirely fixed fee based, because in our business, it's important that we grow with our customers. And this is actually some of the strong things that we have seen. And we've actually increased that part in Germany. And as you can see from the composition of ARR, Germany is actually growing quite significant. And part of that is because that we are getting closer to and are more aligned with our customers in terms of the subscription part. So, but I think that it's a healthy mix. And I think this will more or less be what we'll see also going forward. No revolution here.
Perfect. Then there's a question around the POS systems. Progress on
that. That's 60 as well, by the way.
Sorry, yeah. Then there's a question, progress on upselling the POS systems. You know, I guess that's a German business you also want to move to other countries. Is that successful, or can you give us some feel on that?
Very successful. So as you recall, we bought, when we acquired or merged with AppSmart, there was an old legacy POS system that was implemented quite extensively in Germany. Now that was based on old code. It wasn't entirely made for a takeaway restaurant. So we actually decided to spend the money and the time to rewrite the code and make a new product, which is a true cloud POS, entirely made for the takeaway restaurants. And that and that product is really taking off. So we're the only POS where we have decided to focus entirely on takeaway. I mean, we don't have dine-in restaurants, so we don't need to have split the bill. We don't need to have tipping. We don't need. There's a lot of things that you normally have in a POS system that you don't need in a takeaway restaurant POS system. Now, the most important thing for a restaurant takeaway POS system is actually that the POS menu and the shop menu is completely aligned with all discounts, prices, changes, menus, all that jazz. And we have done that. And then it has to be super, super easy to implement and use, and we've done that as well. So that part is actually having tremendous traction. We've also introduced a product in Q4 that I talked about at an earlier stage, which is restaurant delivery service, which is basically an add-on where we, as a software, can give the restaurants access to Volt, Uber Eats, Steward, and the likes, so that if they need delivery, they can do it through these platforms, but in their own name. Those platforms is actually opening up. It's very much, if any of you follow OLO in the US, it's like the OLO Rails, which is basically that you have another way of delivering the takeaway to the end consumer but still in your own name. So all done through our platform, but delivered through the portals that we work together with. Tremendously strong traction on that product as well.
And I guess it's too early to say or to measure that, but I guess this one will give you stickiness. Is that correct? That's besides having an upselling opportunity. I guess the stickiness must also be better when you get all this integration. Can you see that in somehow? And I know it's probably hard to see that in the numbers.
But what you can see is that obviously these added products give stickiness. I mean, so from a product, or sort of from a profitability point of view, the take rate on, I mean, the order generation part of our business, so the shop part, is where the money is earned. So the POS system, the RDSs of the world, is all about creating stickiness, and they do.
Perfect. Then there's a question here. Thoughts on average take rate going forward? Will they stay stable at current levels?
It's a good question. Yes, I do think so.
Last question, and then I will let you go. Thoughts on competition from Flipdish?
So obviously,
I know it's a tough one. We don't like to talk about competitors.
It's because I don't like to kind of talk about competitors, but you know, in the way that I will probably have to do here. The Flipdish is definitely struggling. Now they had, as you all probably know, a completely different strategy than we have. So all products in all markets to all restaurant types was very good under Corona and COVID, and is tremendously difficult to execute now. So the annual reports from Flipdish is public. You will see a much lower growth than ours. You will see a big loss. You will see that of the 100 million euros, 150 million euros they've got, they have around 1/3 back. And just one interesting thing is that we saw on LinkedIn, on LinkedIn, or one of the social media platforms, that Flipdish presented themselves in the market as the number one OrderYOYO Alternative, which is interesting, right?
Yeah, that is. It's always if you get to be the name for something like Google or Rumor. That is a strong. And generally, I know you already gave us some insight. So the competitive situation in general, I don't know. I can remember. Did you touch a little bit upon that? You don't see that changing very much, or in a positive way.
Not fundamentally. No, we don't.
But what maybe is important is that we have developed various stuff on the compliance side that enable us to be one step ahead of many minor competitors. So there is KYC requirements. We are and have been KYCing the majority of all our customers. The POS system that Jesper alluded to before is also a requirement in most countries due to compliance and automatic registrations with the tax authorities. And we have those solutions in place. So I think from that perspective, many of the smaller competitors that are out there and are doing good will struggle due to the fact that it's heavy investment required in order to be compliant with the legislation coming in the coming years.
That's a tremendous important point, actually. The whole KYC point is definitely a value-adding and value-creating thing for us.
And the rails, as you mentioned, that you can do that. I don't also think I've seen that by any of your competitors. Is that correct? You know that you can order, go through the food portal's delivery services.
I haven't seen it either, to be honest. But I actually don't know.
No, perfect.
I haven't seen it. If there's anybody that can do it.
I promised you it was last question. I can't hold that. We got one in. Strong UK performance. Have you changed the value proposition to customers over there?
No, the value proposition is the same, except for the fact that we now have a couple of more add-on products involved. But I think that the focus on the customer type is what UK is all about. So we are now entirely focusing on restaurants that we know will have the biggest chance or possibility to fly in with our products. So the qualification of customers in the UK is tremendously important, and probably more important than in any other market because of the intense competition situation that we have over there. So there's no room for errors in choosing the right customers. So I think that the active approach to selecting customers in the UK is the thing, number one, and number two, the execution in the UK is tremendously strong at the moment. Our team.
Perfect. That was the last question. Thank you to you, Jesper and Jesper, for taking us through your results, and we are of course looking forward to the Q1 results. And thank you to everybody for listening in. May everybody have a nice weekend.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, everybody.
Everyone.
Bye.